All right, so let's get started. So I'd like to introduce you to Matt Kamp. He's SVP at Influence & Co. He's a good friend of mine. Matt, I want you to just share a little bit about yourself with our audience, mostly agency owners, of course.
Yeah, no problem. Robby, thanks for having me on again. I'd say, my background is kind of a mix between sales, marketing, journalism, advertising, that whole world. I'm at Influence & Co. We're a company that helps brands, all big Fortune 500s down to individual authors to help them turn their knowledge into thought leadership content, and then get that content online in front of their prospects to build up their influence as the go-to experts in what they do. So really kind of that thought leadership, content marketing, PR world.
Gotcha. Fun fact about yourself?
Yeah. Fun fact. Let me think. I have two boys, one 2-year-old and 5-month-old. So, the fact that I don't have any spit up on me today is a win. So, still getting used to dad life, but, it's been a blast, man.
You look too rested. You look too rested.
I
don't understand.
Coffee does one.
Yeah, that's true. I just got done with my cup, and I've got Coca-Cola. I've got all kinds of caffeinated beverages right here. And before we get started with some of the questions we have today for you, I want to add that you're going to be sharing a special promotion with the audience, and I'm going to talk about that at the end of the show. So have everybody stay tuned to the end, and then you'll share what that is, talk about it a little bit more. But first, let's talk about building your brand into an industry thought leader. So let's start with how you define thought leadership, and why does thought leadership matter?
Yeah, it's a buzzword you hear all the time now. I think to make it much more tangible, we by thought leadership we mean using your education, using the knowledge that you have, the stories that you have, to create content that is giving value to people. It's giving value to people in a way that they're not being sold to, but rather you're positioning yourself as this true expert in your space and as a resource for them to come to and want content from. From a business perspective, I know now you can see all kinds of varying stats, but at least 50, sometimes up to 70%, you can see through research of the buyer's journey on the B2B side, especially, is typically over by the time a sales rep on your side gets to talk to somebody. So that conversation and owning that in your industry is key, and why being seen as this thought leader matters. So the goal is how do we help you. You want to use your knowledge. You want to be seen as this resource, and thought leadership is our definition is being seen as that go-to influencer.
What's the ROI of thought leadership? What kind of return or content marketing, however you want to call it, and how can you set yourself up for success from an ROI perspective?
Yeah, and that's in general the $1 million question.
Because last time I checked, building influence and content marketing, it's not easy. I mean, it takes a lot of time. It takes a lot of investment. I mean, it certainly takes a commitment.
Yeah, and that's something from an ROI perspective in general, marketing attribution, all of that. We're getting better at it, and as a whole as an industry. But it's something that marketers and CMOs are struggling to make sure that they account for every day. So hear that question a lot. I'd say there's kind of the qualitative side and the quantitative side of it. The qualitative side being, like you said, influence building or brand building or awareness that way, which is harder to specifically give a tangible benefit to, although there very much is that benefit. Like when you come to the table in a sales conversation and they already know your brand, know your story, they've been consuming your content, I mean, you're at a significant advantage versus somebody who they aren't familiar with. So I'd say there's that piece of the puzzle. And then on the quantitative side, it can be everything from, organic search and traffic and that type of piece from content you're putting online, especially if you're getting it into online publications, then having that link back and the SEO value of that is very tangible in terms of traffic and conversion and all that. And then inbound leads coming from that. So I'd say there's not necessarily a straightforward inbound funnel per se. Like I think it's a little bit more of like a flywheel where you're consistently getting in front of people and maybe they're coming back to your site a handful of times, and then finally down the road when they're ready to make a purchase decision, then they become a customer. So it's not necessarily as binary as reach somebody new and bring them back and then convert them in every industry. But I'd say the quantitative side would be building up that momentum over time, leading to inbound business from it.
Gotcha. So what types of content work? What types of content should agency owners, should CMOs, should anybody building their personal profile, their personal brand, what should they focus on?
Yeah, I mean, I think kind of a general rule of thumb, you should be creating the content that you're most effective creating and you're most effective communicating through. Some audiences are going to take to better than others to writing versus podcasts versus the video content and things like that. Having conversations with your current customers and your prospects will also help you understand that, and asking them what type of content they're consuming consistently. Definitely recommend that. But in the end, I'd say whatever you're most effective at, whether it be just getting on a webinar like this, all the way through to maybe you are a writer, maybe you have exercised that muscle or are able to. You should be creating what you're going to actually communicate effectively on, and be able to build into your routine as something consistent in your day.
Gotcha. And then if you're looking to take that content and get into, high pedigree, big name publications, what does that process look like? Where do you start? If you're not working with a traditional PR agency and going down that approach.
Yeah, it's something. I mean, you can definitely do it internally. It's not rocket science by any means. It definitely takes a commitment from the time perspective, and then getting your team to buy in to be able to pull knowledge from across the team to create this content. That's when you're going to be most effective, is when you have multiple people at your company weighing in on things in their industry. But that being said, I know in general, we do put out a survey to. We work with about 1,500 online publications that we work directly with their editors and send out a survey every year to them. And in that survey, I ask them, like, hey, why do you take our content? Like, what about content do you look for? And, if someone approaches you with an article, how can they get published? So from those findings, we can get pretty data driven in terms of how to create content that is going to get placed and picked up and things. And I'd say probably the four main steps would be: one, document your strategy, which that seems like a no-brainer, but it's something that over time people easily skip, easily find not necessary, and being able to actually go through and say, okay, here's our persona we're going after, and here's what they care about, and here are the questions we hear from them, and really digging in and saying, okay, in the first place, here's who we're going after. Documenting that strategy is, I know less than half of content marketers who, that's their job is content marketing all day, and over half don't have that statistically. So I'd say one, start there. That's going to put you ahead of the curve. Two would be really getting personal and using data to back up your content. So anytime you can include personal stories and include lessons learned, can really draw very specific examples out that back up your claim. Publications love that. Like, that's something that you can do, both that no one else can do, and that these editors are looking for. So that's going to create very unique content for people to share. And then backing it up with data. Like, I mean, even me just talking about this survey that we did, that's firsthand research that we did. Whatever you can do, that's firsthand research that maybe your competitors don't have access to. Like, for us, it's publication relationships, but whatever it is in your industry, try to create firsthand data from that. And that's huge for publications. They love surveys like that, and being able to back that up with very specific data. Third step would be edit. So anything you submit to a publication, you're reflecting their brand as well. Like, if you send something over with a typo in it or bad grammar, whatever it might be, and they publish it, like, that's going to look poorly on them too. So I'd say make sure you set them up for success, and they'll thank you for that. So I would say fourth step is really researching the publication and understanding who exactly is reading that publication. The more you can demonstrate to that editor and saying, hey, here's why my article is going to perform really well here, and saying, hey, here, these articles are doing very well on your site. These articles are doing very well in the industry. Based on that, here's why my article is going to do well at your publication, and really showing them that you understand who's reading the publication every day, especially if it's a niche publication that's industry specific, and maybe it only has 50 to 100,000 readers every month, but those exact readers are the exact prospects that you're trying to get in front of. Like, I'd say those publications are your best bet, because you're probably looking at a publication that has a handful of people on their staff and are scrambling every day and are trying to put out new content and need stuff from the experts in the industry like yourself. So I think it's a huge opportunity to be able to supply them with great content as well as get your message in front of the right people online.
Love it. Love it. Love the 4 steps. So what types of publications should you be focusing on? Should you be targeting?
Yeah, I mean, I think that really fits. There's kind of 2 buckets. Like we talk about the niche publication there that I mentioned, and then we talk about marquees, which those definitely have opportunities too. I mean, if you're looking at the Forbes and Incs and Fast Companies of the world and things, they are looking for content from experts in the industry and everything too. There's always things like Forbes councils that you can be looking at applying for and things like that are an ever evolving contribution model or contributor model. But I think that the niche publications as well are where you can see a ton of success and a ton of opportunity. Like when we publish on, we used to publish on like the Kissmetrics blog or, the HubSpot blog or things like that, or Content Marketing Institute, these publications that are, the golden standard for the content marketing industry, but also are looking for great content. I mean, there's a ton of opportunity there. And I think focusing on the marquees for credibility is great, but then also the niche publications that reach the right people and to generate inbound business from that, that kind of tandem approach is really what we recommend.
Nice. Love it. And then what about what topics are popular or should you be creating content around?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's it depends on what your goals are. A lot of those publications, like the mainstream type publications, are looking for the personal stories and the lessons learned and the stories that feature you and talk about your background and are very personal. So I'd say if you're targeting that type of publication, that's the type of pitch you want to go with. If you're looking at a niche publication that speaks to a specific decision maker, then understanding what are those FAQs that they have and what are those objections that you have to overcome when you're talking to them, you're potentially bringing them on as a prospect or as a client and things like that. Understanding those very specific tactical strategies, that's usually what those publications are looking for. Yes, the story helps in being able to back it up with that for sure. It's not exclusive to that, but I think the very actionable, tangible things that you're speaking to a very specific industry and they can take away and learn from, rely on those types of topics for more niche publications.
And then we talked a lot about where to go to get published, what topics to write about, but how do you save time then in the process of actually creating all this content?
That's a great question. I mean, that's probably one of the most common ones we hear is I know I should be doing this, but I don't have the time to start with. So I'd say in general, you have to definitely make a decision that it's an investment for the company and your time and really understand that you're taking that approach of it's a long-term game and it's something that, when you get 7, 8, 9 articles out there versus just the one-offs every so often, like you're going to have much more tangible results and build much more momentum. So you have to kind of start there. But I'd say in general, kind of start off and try to understand who are those people in your company that want to build the company brand, but then yes, like putting out content out there not only is going to humanize the brand and help the company, but it's also going to help themselves personally and help them build their own influence and further their own career. So if you can tap into that ambition with people across your team, start there and make sure you're not just doing it solo. So if you can have, salespeople in on it, marketing and executives and, different leaders across the company, they all have their own stories and expertise they can bring to the table. You definitely want some kind of asset that is a way to crowdsource their knowledge and make it very easy to tap into that knowledge across the team. So like on our site, we free downloadable piece of content would be a knowledge bank, which is our term for this kind of spreadsheet of something you can share across the team that, it could be as simple as a Google Doc or whatever it might be, to be able to kind of share this knowledge and be able to put in topics that, say if they had a very passionate conversation with somebody or say they had a sales conversation and they know this is something that they continually need to educate people on, they should be dumping just stream of consciousness, giving their thoughts into this document. And then outside of that, I'd say, as the marketing person or as the point of contact for this whole initiative, I would continually ask my people throughout the team to put their knowledge in there. And then even looking at very least, like look at some kind of writer and bring on, a freelancer or someone like that that can then run with that stream of consciousness knowledge if your team isn't a team full of writers that love to write all the time, or love to create content all the time, if you're looking at video or whatever the medium might be. So I'd say, one, start with this kind of buy-in across the team. Two, have an asset for them to crowdsource it to. And then three, bring on a writer that can turn that knowledge into a full, effective article.
Love it. And then how do you maximize the value of the content that you produce?
Yeah, that's something that I think people are really finding more and more of a need. Like, people are coming around to the idea that they need to create content, but when you're going to see value from it is how you leverage that content. Like, even getting published in a Forbes or whatever it might be, that's awesome. But what you do with that article is you're going to see much more, results and tangible benefit from it than just getting published itself. So I'd say starting there, understanding you need to invest in the maximization, the distribution of that content, and then use it as an asset across your team. Like, the marketing team, they should be using it for social media and their newsletter, just everything that they're doing to make all that more effective. Like, content should be the fuel for everything they're doing. The sales team, they should be using it within the sales process and educating prospects using it and staying top of mind with their referral partners using it, and all, using it as a touch point for their whole network. HR, they should be using it for training and recruiting and being able to use it similar to how the sales team is, but with hiring and with talent. Executives, like, they should be using it for speaking and for awards and using it within the application process for all of that stuff. And even, say you're fundraising, like using it to interact with investors and build credibility with them. There are endless ways you can be creative with it. And we really, really practice what we preach and try to leverage this content a ton ourselves and then pass that on to our network. So those are just some of the ways that we've been using it. But how you leverage that content is where you're going to see the majority of the return from it.
Love it. Love it. All right. Well, I want to thank you for your time and going through some of these questions. Perspective is obviously, something that a lot of us don't have. And I know that you've got a lot of experience in this space and send you a lot of business, hopefully, your way. But want to ask, how can people get a hold of you? How can they reach you? How can they learn more about Influence & Co? And then we'll talk about that special promotion.
Yeah, so we've set up a link. If you just go to influenceandco.com /Matt, M-A-T-T. You can that's my booking link. So you can go in there, book out a time to chat with me. I'd love to figure out ways to be helpful. If you think we can be helpful on the marketing side, great. But if not, I try to be a resource for my entire network. So I'm always open to talking partnership opportunities and really any other way we can get creative, to help each other out. So.
Awesome. All right. And that special promotion, you and I talked a little bit, and we were going to pick one out of three, and then you were like, screw it, I'm going to do all three. And I think there's pretty good value to what you're offering. So tell me more. Yeah.
Really, anybody that works with us or refers somebody that works, or that refers somebody that would also work with us, mention this webinar, or they come through that booking link, anybody like that, we can definitely provide a ton of extra value in terms of deliverables. Like, if we're creating any kind of content with you, from this, we can provide extra drip campaigns, infographics, guest contributed articles. I have the green light to give up to like $2,500 worth of free stuff from anybody that's working with us. So that's something we don't do often. So it's exciting to be able to share it with your network, and just make sure you tell me, Robby sent you, and happy to hook you guys up.
Awesome. Well, appreciate it, Matt. We will definitely roll this out there and push it out to the Bull and Beer community and the agency stable. And I'm sure you get a lot of probably additional questions and comments and that sort of thing. But really appreciate you being on today and sharing some wisdom.
Yeah. Thanks again for having me on, Robby, always.
All right.